What are fearsome Lupa's biggest pros and cons? That's what I'm here to tell you today. My name is Juice, and let's get into it. To start things off, I really want to say, Lupa is genuinely somewhat underrated for how freaking good she is, and I am really going to emphasize that in this video today. One thing that I really want to bring up that is going to be especially relevant soon is her relevance in Aemeath Teams. Aemeath is a fusion unit, and no matter what, Lupa will always be good in a team where fusion units are present. So this means that if you weren't able to get Linny or Mornier, or if you simply are using the double Toon Break core in a different team, which makes sense considering how universally broken that core is, or maybe you're just using the individual characters elsewhere, which is also fine, it is very likely that Lupa is going to be able to compensate and still provide you with a viable Aemeath team. There is a reason that Kuro is running Lupa next to Aemeath. Obviously, they can't just rerun the new 3.0 characters again, so their next best bet is going for Lupa, who is just a generally broken fusion support. And consider that Mornier herself is also fusion, so that can easily sort you out for a third slot teammate if you did manage to get her. If not, then you could still run something budget-friendly like Aemeath Mortefi Lupa. There's gonna be choices. And you can still choose to run something like Shorekeeper on the end, even if you're not making the most out of Lupa's fusion-based buffs, because she is still going to be really strong in that case. So on top of the already many existing fusion teams that this character has, she is soon going to get another one, and I think that's definitely worth mentioning considering how big of a release Aemeath is going to be. Another thing that I should mention is that she is just generally the fusion goddess. Like, this character is absurd for basically every fusion character. It doesn't matter which one we're talking about, Lupa is able to work with them, and she is able to be really freaking good with them. Don't have Choyuwen for your Galbraina? No problem. Use the Wolf Lady. You want to play Brent DPS to its fullest potential? No problem. Use the Wolf Lady. You want to play Triple Fusion? Same answer again. This character is so good for any fusion-based team. And another thing that I should mention is that we have so many fusion characters. Usually when you have a niche support like this, you have to consider, okay, yes, they're really good, but they are, after all, a niche character and they're only good in this specific area. But consider that fusion is an extremely wide area at this point. Even excluding Aemeath, there are so many different combinations of fusion teams that you can make. Even Encore, a standard banner DPS, is still a pretty good DPS, but is able to excellently synergize with Lupa. So the possibilities are endless. There are a lot of teams in which you're able to use her. So even though she is a niche support, it is pretty unlikely that you don't have at least one fusion character. Maybe you do genuinely just have none of them. But for the most part, I would expect that you have at least one. And I think that is most definitely going to be the case after Aemeath releases, especially after Aemeath releases, considering how popular she is. So being the goddess of fusion is actually a really good thing to be, because that attribute is absolutely stacked at the moment, and Kuro just keeps on feeding it. We have gotten so many recently, to the point where Lupa's value is just at an all-time high right now. This is the prime time to invest into her. There is such a gargantuan roster of characters that you can use her with for a niche support. It's honestly really impressive. And consider how good Lupa is in these teams. It's not just that she has a lot of characters that she can work with, she is insane for all of them. And this is why I say I feel like this character's value is not appreciated enough. Because she is genuinely just that girl. She is so worth your time, and she's one of the few third slot teammates that I feel like are definitively worth their cost and value. And that's another thing. I say she's a third slot because that is how she was designed, to be the final piece of the puzzle in the Changli Brent Wuthering Waves team. However, she is still able to play as a very effective second slot teammate as well. It doesn't matter how you play her, she is going to be really, really strong. As a third slot, she is absolutely excellent, and as a second slot, you can play her there as a support to Brent Wuthering Waves main DPS, Galbraina main DPS, Encore main DPS, basically whatever you choose, and then the third slot can be either Shorekeeper or ideally Mornier. So she's not even a strict third slot, which is awesome. And another thing that I should bring up is that she does her own damage, and it's actually pretty decent damage. So she also makes her own contributions to the team. This is something that makes Triple Fusion very fun in my opinion, by the way. That's a team that is primarily comprised of characters that can deal damage. Now, I will mention that because we have Mornier now, this isn't always going to be the case anymore, as you can slot her in as a third slot, and while Mornier is capable of personal damage, it's not exactly the same as playing traditional Triple Fusion, but if you play traditional Triple Fusion, there is always damage coming out from all sides. Everyone is making a contribution, Lupa included. So she's also able to do her own damage on top of all of the amazing buffs she does, and genuinely this character is so freaking overtuned for fusion, it's insane. Though granted, this is what I feel like a third slot teammate should be. Now, okay, Lupa is extremely strong, so maybe that's pushing it a little bit, but you can see the clear difference between Lupa and Roshia, for example. When you pull for this character, she provides such a definitive increase to the niche that she supports that it simply cannot be ignored. It is absolutely excellent how strong she is in that regard, because she offers basically everything. The only real drawback is that she's niche, but can you really call the character that works with such a large pool of units that niche? She's definitely a lot less niche than the average negative status unit, for instance. Another thing is that she is free-to-play accessible. Yes, we have plenty of Fusion 5 stars, but it should be noted that Encore is a standard banner Fusion unit. So chances are if you've been playing this game for a while, you may have lost to Encore at least once, and we have been able to choose standard banner characters at least twice. Once on the beginner banner, and once from Kuro Games' own mail, and I believe that the majority of people probably picked Varina and Encore if they were going for meta. There is probably a handful of people that went for Kalcharo or Jianshin instead, just depending on who you like more, but in any case, I do think that if you do care about meta, you probably went for the Sheep Kid. And if not then there is a high chance that you have at least lost to her once, unless you're extremely lucky and just happen to win literally all of your 50-50s, which yes, that is actually a thing that can happen. But if you do have an Encore, through whatever means, then Lupa's able to work with her, and it's actually still a really solid team. Honestly, considering how old Encore is, it's actually quite nice. So even if you don't have a single limited 5-star fusion character to your name, you can still use her with Lupa, and then essentially have that attribute covered, at least for TOA, which I think is quite nice. Another thing is consider teams like Galbrina, Mortefi, Lupa. If you don't have a good second slot for Galbrina, and your Linny is already used up, that's another thing you can do. Mortefi is mostly there so that he can help out with the full fusion passive, and of course provide his heavy attack buffs, but having Lupa in the back over Shorekeeper is genuinely so much better. And if your Mornier is S0R0, then having Lupa in the back is preferable to having Mornier there as well. Now I will say, if you're considering using Mornier, then once again just play Galbrina, Lupa, Mornier. However, if your Mornier is being used elsewhere, then yes, having Lupa in the back as a third slot is very, very effective. This is not even considering how she can use the classic standard Broadblade quite nicely. Her signature weapon is definitely a good increase, and it is still worth getting over the standard weapon. However, Lustrous Razor is still a very good choice on her, and it's about 20% worse than using her Sig, which, for a Wuthering Wave signature weapon, considering this is a character that has decent personal damage, I'd say that's not too bad. Though it should be noted that Wildfire Mark does have team-wide buffs, which does make it especially valuable. But either way, Lustrous Razor is still pretty good on her, so even if you were to pull this character S0R0 and just use the standard Broadblade on her, she's still going to perform, and she is still going to be a very strong unit. So all around, she is free-to-play accessible, absolutely buffs the heck out of one particular niche that currently has a lot of good characters in it, and is quite flexible in the way that she can be played. Quite literally, the only real drawback to this character is just the fact that she is niche. But once again, Fusion has so many good characters in it at the moment that getting Lupa for your Fusion DPS literally cannot be a bad investment. She is so good. If anything, I actually think it would be perfectly reasonable to pull a Fusion DPS for Lupa, because these teams are just really good at the moment, and it should also be mentioned that it's not just good in TOA, but also Whimpering Wastes. She is a really good WuWa unit, and Triple Fusion is one of the best available WuWa teams at the minute. It's nowhere near as good as Frolova, but nothing is as good as Frolova and Whimpering Wastes, let's be real here. She clears that stuff easily, like cutting grass with a lawnmower, even if there's Havoc res up. No point comparing those two. However, Triple Fusion is still a really good Whimpering Wastes team, so if you end up with it, you're going to be completely fine, and she's quite frankly just the gift that keeps on giving meta-wise. Lupa is absurdly strong. She is so meta, and I do feel like she does get underappreciated a lot. She is one of the few third slot teammates that I actually feel like are worth your Astrites, because plenty of them just end up not being big enough increases for their specific niche. And most of the time, those are characters that only have like 1 or 2 good teams at best. Lupa's a character that has numerous good teams, and she is excellent in all of them. I cannot recommend her enough. Now, if you don't already have Lupa and you're a Fusion main, I literally could not recommend that you pull for the character more. She is genuinely that good. And if you're wondering whether it's worth getting her if you already have a Linny Mornier combo, I'll say this. I personally still think she's worth getting to free up those characters for other teams, because Lupa is really strong, and she's gonna provide you with a ton of account value in that sense. I'd say it like this: it's more worth getting Lupa for your fusion teams, as opposed to getting Chisa for your card Thea, or getting Yuno for your Augusta. Yuno's a very good character, by the way, but once again, I'm just emphasizing how good Lupa is. So even if you do have a double Toon Break core, I do still think she's worth investing into, yes. Hopefully this video was able to tell you Lupa's biggest pros and cons. This has been Juice, signing out. I'd see you when Kuro Games inevitably makes 10 more fusion units and Lupa once again gets inevitably indirectly buffed.